What's happening, YouTube? It's Simon466 Cards, and today we're going to talk about a concept called a loss aversion and why I think it's especially prevalent and important to be aware of in sports cards and the sports card hobby. So you can find a bunch of explanations on the internet. You could Google it, and I highly recommend you do. I'm going to give you a couple of different thoughts about this and try and simplify it as much as I can. So it's a concept that is based in both psychology and economics. And you can see here I'm on the loss aversion Wikipedia page. This is, again, a very, very commonly referred to theory. And it basically just talks about how outcomes with that can be viewed as gains and losses. People are more subject to more sensitivity to the losses when you compare to the gains, and that gains are about as half as powerful as losses, or another way to think about it is losses feel twice as powerful as gains. And it's like the common analogy is you win $100 versus you lose $100. This is saying the joy of winning $100 is half the feeling that you would get if you lost $100. The losing the $100 feels doubly worse than the good from winning $100. And there's a bunch of reasons why I'll get into why that is, and I'm not going to get into that. I will be. This was from two people named Kahneman and Tversky. We're going to be hearing a little bit more about them. Again, I'm going to simplify it as much as I can. But this is a psychological factor and an economic theory that is, I think, really prevalent in sports cards. So, and this is another great little phrase here. People are so determined to avoid losses, they spend more money and time than is necessary just to protect themselves from the uncomfortable feeling of losing. Like, you're doing anything you can to avoid the feeling of loss. And if that starts to ring more and more true about sports cards, I think you know where I'm getting at. And they also have a great example. Again, this is the Kahneman and Tversky paper. I'm going to dumb it down for you. Basically, they asked a bunch of people in this study. They said, you can take a gamble where you have a 50% chance of winning $1,000, or you definitely just win $500. You get a guaranteed $500. Do you want to take the risk of winning $1,000, 50-50, or just give you $500 straight up? What do you choose, right? And so the expected value of both outcomes is $500, right? But in this case, here they're saying that 84% of people chose to win the $500 straight up and don't take the gamble on 1,000, which, it is what it is. That's 84% of the people. When they asked the same people a very similar choice, it said the choices being take a gamble with a 50% chance of losing $1,000 or definitely lose $500. So it's basically the same thing, right? It's just now instead of winning, it is now losing $1,000 or definitely lose $500 instead of definitely winning $500. Last time, 84% chose a certain outcome of winning $500. Here, 69% chose to take the gamble to possibly lose $1,000 because they're trying to avoid a loss. That's the definition of loss aversion, right? They'll take the gamble here because they don't want to have that feeling of loss because it makes them so unhappy. Whereas here, they're willing to take the sure thing of $500 because they'll just take any win to make them feel happy, right? So that's the general explanation for it. You can do a lot more research. I'll let you do that on your own time. Here's why it applies to sports cards so much. This idea of loss, obviously everybody has owned sports cards that they have made money on and that have lost value, right? And obviously in the past 3 years, probably a lot of us hold a good number of cards that have lost value. And this is why I think it's especially relevant to sports cards. It also applies to ideas in terms of ownership, right? Once we take ownership of an ideology or substitute sports cards into this, we tend to value it more than it's worth, and we hate to lose that argument. However, we run the risk of dismissing other people's ideas that may be simply better than ours. And so this is the sense that I found really insightful for the sports card hobby. The entire hobby is based around arguments. It's based around, I know better than you. I know that this card or this player is going to perform well. And so, even though Zion Williamson has missed basically 3 seasons or 2.5 seasons in his 4-year career, we're still going to hold on because you want to avoid the idea that you're wrong. You want to be right, and you want to avoid the feeling of loss. And so if I were to ask you or anybody else in the hobby, do you hold cards that you are for sure have a loss on, but you don't want to sell it because you don't want to sell it for the sake of saying that I was wrong, that I took a loss on this card? Because if you still hold on to it, you haven't solidified that loss yet, right? There's still a chance for it to go up, but chances are it's not going to go back up to where it would be, right? But it's the admitting to yourself that, yeah, I wasn't right on this one. This one is a loss. I refuse to sell this card until I break even, right? But that could cost you more money, where the best play would be to sell it while you still can, and you could still have some money that you could redeploy into another card or into another investment or to pay some bills or whatever, right? And so how many of us are holding a bunch of random players that we no longer believe in just because we believe, even though deep down inside we don't believe, because we just don't want to admit to ourselves that we have lost, and we are avoiding admitting that loss by holding onto the card and not selling it, right? And so I think loss aversion applies even more so to sports cards than pretty much any other thing that I can think of, because of just how stubborn, to be honest, the sports card hobby is, and how much it's rooted in being right and wrong and the arguments thereof or therein. And so I would say take an honest reflection of your cards. Take an honest reflection on your collection. Are there cards that you should just bite the bullet, cut your losses while you still can, come back stronger next season and buy something else? I have cards that I should be doing this with. I'm not immune to this by any means. I have a bunch of Joel Embiid cards that I don't really love. Like, I have a lot of base PSA 10 stuff that's, I've taken probably like a 50-ish% hit on. I should sell those. I probably wait till the beginning of next season, but I have a bunch of those. Like, the base PSA 10s, like a pop of 1600. They don't really do anything for me because I have a few of them. And so, I think I should take my own advice on this one as well. But let me know in the comments, like, is this something, having watched this video, that you're like, oh yeah, I should probably sell some of these cards and get some of my money back while I still can, instead of it going down by another 25-30%, maybe even more, right? For my, I don't know, Kevin Porter Jr.'s, sorry, Cajun Cardboard, for my, Keldon Johnsons, for my Zions, for my John Morants, for even my Lucas. I'll be honest, right? Like, what upside does he have? And, I've made plenty of videos about that. So let me know your comments. Does this concept of loss aversion, does it hit home for you? Does this make you reflect on what cards you have and whether or not you should realign what cards you have in your collection? Let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear your thoughts and feedback. And as always, we preview the next video on the channel. We're going to do something a little bit different. A few weeks ago on the Sports Cards Nonsense podcast, there was a debate between Jesse and Mike about what sells more, or which cards sells more, TCG cards or sports cards. And so that's what I'm going to dive into next time. So thank you as always for listening and watching, and I will talk to you all soon. Cheers.